independent publisher, and then they were doing so well that a traditional publisher approached them and said, would you like to join our stable? But that's because they proved themselves in the first place. Now, a small publisher, which is what I've got, she has, I think, about 70 to 80 authors. And she's based in the United States.
Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie, and I'm one half of the romance author duo under the pen name Fiona Whitman. I created this podcast to be a go-to resource for authors writing fiction and nonfiction, and who are looking for real strategies from authors wanting to make this a full-time career. So today I'm excited that I get to introduce our fantastic guest. We've got Jennifer Rains, and she's an author, Australian author, who writes sensuous contemporary romances that will transport you to amazing places, from Australia to Malta, Finland, and even New Zealand. Jennifer is a true dreamer and optimist, and her stories are a delicious mix of passion, mutual respect, and loyalty because, just like me, she's absolutely believing in happily ever afters. So, Jennifer, it's great to have you here. And I know I shared a brief introduction, but I would love to hear a little bit more about you.
Thanks, Debbie. I write contemporary romance. I've been writing for quite a long time, but I've dipped in and out at different times. So I've stopped completely and then returned to it, usually because of life, work, making a living, those sorts of things. But my first book was published in 2022 called Taylor's Law. And it's part of two books. People were telling me that you needed to write a series, and I usually I've always written standalones. And so I thought, right, I'll take on this challenge for a series. And I got as far as two books. So I had Taylor's Law and then Grace Under Fire, and they were two sisters, one passionate about the law, one passionate about the land. And their history was part of what made them that way. So at this point, my ninth book was released earlier in July, and that, in fact, was the fifth book in a series. So I've now had the two-book series, 5 books series, and 2 standalones in the middle of that. And the next book I'm planning will be a standalone that's coming out early next year. My books are available from all of those major booksellers, from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, Kobo. Barnes & Noble and Amazon both do paperback print on demand, so you can have paperback copies. And I usually buy some for people who are wanting those, and also if I go to signings and people might want those. I haven't ventured into audiobooks yet. It's interesting. That's a growing field. A lot more people want to read audiobooks because they often read or listen when they're going for a walk or doing housework. For me, that's often my dreaming creative space in a way, and my mind jumps to a million things. And so it's not a time usually when I'm wanting to read a book or listen to a book because it stops my mind from processing things. Sometimes I feel I get a solution to a problem just in gardening, in spending time doing some sort of mindless physical task, and then I think, yes, that's what she should have said, that sort of thing.
I've been kind of dabbling in that or learning more about the audio side. I'm not doing that either. And I think what's stopping me is the price just to hire people to, you know, do the voiceovers.
I think there are some people involved in Australian romance writers who do Audible and are not as expensive as the big commercial arms, but the particular woman I'm thinking of has trained as an actor and so is excellent. And numbers of other people have talked about using her. So I think that sort of leads into some of the things we're going to talk about in a moment.
Perfect. The first topic I want to talk about are authors associations. Can you tell us a little bit more about joining authors associations and how it plays a role in your career and what benefits have you seen?
I was thinking about this after our initial talk, and I was thinking of it in the context of becoming a writer. And so if you think about one strand of that as the craft, where you discuss things like, are you a pantser or are you a plotter? I don't think it matters. What matters are things like the dialogue, the pace, characterization, what point of view you're using. Are you aware of the point of view that you're using? And those sorts of things, there's a lot of free advice from various people in the industry. They do blogs. But equally, a lot of that is aware through author associations. So if you're wanting to become a professional writer, I think there are two paths that you take at the same time. You investigate your writing and improving your writing, but you also start to try and let yourself be known, because that way you've almost built a readership by the time you get a book written.
Mm,
So, for example, it's a good time to be thinking about social media platforms you're interested in. Are you interested in Facebook and Instagram? Some authors are also using BookTok, and some are shifting, in fact, to Blue Sky and Substack because they're annoyed with the really huge people like Amazon and Instagram sort of taking information for artificial intelligence. Also YouTube as a platform. And you might want to, within this, establish a web page. You might think you haven't got much to say at this point on a web page, but if you do some sort of monthly chat or blog, people are getting to know you. And often readers, if they find something about you intriguing, they might follow up and read your work. And so that's quite a good thing there. Um, with the associations, there are several values. One of them is that you get to know other authors and you can approach them and ask them for questions in their genre or more broadly. You get to participate in Zooms through meetings because they have collective meetings where you can just ask any silly question you want. There are newsletters from some of those associations, and then there are conferences. And at the conferences, they'll often have editors and agents, and you can pitch to them. So
mm.
you're starting to be in the world that you want to be in. And there are associations if you were wanting to write, uh, what is it? Murder and mayhem. It's not coming to me at the moment, but there is a association for that. Lots of different
Like
genres
mafia.
have, yeah, have groups and things like that that you can
Hmm.
actually speak to. The ones that I'm a member of are Romance Writers of Australia, Romance Writers of New Zealand. I am a member of Romance Writers of America, but in recent years, it's offered far fewer competitions. And competitions is another benefit because often for the finalists of a competition, you'll have a publisher, a publishing company, or an agent being the judge at the end of that competition. And if you're selected, they might ask for the full manuscript. And even if you say to them, well, it's not quite finished yet, they'll still say, send it along when it is finished because I'm interested in what you're saying and what you've got to offer. And I like your style or your concept, that sort of thing. So it also then gets your name in front of the other members of the association so that again later on they might see your name on a book and be more prepared to pick you up. Oh, I know her. You know,
Hmm.
she's quite an interesting person. I wonder what she writes, that sort of thing. We also have in Australia what's called the Australian Romance Readers Association, which I came to quite late. And that's where people who are just very interested in romance writing can sign on to hear more stories from their favourite authors or to discover new authors. They do book reviews, they do special meetups, special signings they organise, and they'll bring a visitor from overseas who might be a favourite author, and so you get to see them. Um, and I think I mentioned the events where, again, you get to meet just a whole lot of different people and hear things that had never occurred to you. Um, a lot of the early conferences in New Zealand had a lot on independent publishing, which was just fascinating. I had never proposed, I had not intended to enter indie publishing, but they were already thinking about those sort of things. So, yeah, I think that's sort of, well, within that is, for me, um, writing a blog. So with my blog on my website, I only write it once a month. it's often the way I can tell you that a new release is coming out and what it is and promote it. And I can also advertise my books on the blog so that you can go straight through to purchase from them, not from me, but from the sellers. And I reveal, hopefully, a bit of myself and my personality. So again, I'm making contacts, engaging people. And I think someone said it a long time ago, it's the first sale you have to get, and then
Mm,
you get the second sale. And,
right.
it's often built on small steps. And a woman I sat next to at a conference last year, she said it was 5 years before she was making money in four digits.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. Okay.
so it takes a while. It takes a while because there are a lot of good writers out there, and people have limited time to read. And if they've got a choice between someone they know and who is an old favorite and you, and they're tired and put the kids to bed or whatever, they'll go for the name they know and the story that they'll get. So you've got to start penetrating that
Mm.
sort of headspace so that they'll listen to you.
So what I'm hearing in that is basically just, sharing who you are out there in the world, just not just with other authors, but readers. And you do that through blogs. You also do that through being a part of this association. So you're interacting with other readers, and
Yeah.
again, you're basically just expanding your name so that they say, like I knew a marketing guru had once told me that someone had to see a brand 16 times for them to buy the product.
I thought it was more. I thought it was something like 29 from what I'd
I
heard
wouldn't
with
be surprised.
advertisements and
Um,
political slogans and things like that. Keep it short, keep it punchy, and, it really takes a long time to
and
penetrate.
keep it consistent, the messaging.
Yes, that's right. You
Yeah.
keep it consistent. That's right.
So let me ask you this. So with your blog, at the end of your blog, do you have for more information, come to my website, or,
I do.
sign up and get my weekly newsletter, like you would doing we'll call it a lead magnet or something to that effect?
Mm. I definitely do. So on my website, which is just jenniferrainsauthor.com, I have the initial page, which is essentially my monthly blog as a way into that. But then I have a tab that's for my books. And so it keeps them up to date, and it will give you a blurb for one that's upcoming so that you know what's coming as well as what's there. And I have some other information in there that's suitable for, say, librarians, or for I've got a media pack should I be asked to speak somewhere, so that you don't develop all of these things at the last minute. You have them accessible. I have done specials, and I I have promoted them through the blog, but it's easier probably to promote, say, when I'm going to have a special for a week or for 2 weeks and a book's reduced. It's easier to do that through other forms of social media that will reach people more quickly, and where you can do sort of multiples at a time. And that seems to be the most effective way there. Yes, that's what
So
I'd
you don't
probably
have a
say to that.
newsletter. I mean, you do have your
I
blog,
have
but you don't have a
I
newsletter where
yeah, I no, no, I call it
okay.
for me, and part of that is, managing time,
Mm,
because, if you wanna write,
hmm.
then marketing, doing newsletters, doing blogs, all of these sorts of things suck the energy out of you because they have
That's
to be
true.
written and they have to be creative. And so that
Yeah.
sucks a lot of energy out of you, which means that you're not perhaps writing. Many of the people who are successful, they hire people. They hire some of them virtual assistants, but some of them assistants to manage their Insta or their Facebook or their TikTok, those sorts of things. And they just concentrate on writing. But for those of
Right.
us who are still in the weeds, so to speak, and pushing our flower up above the weed patch, um, we're responsible for it all. And so
Yeah.
you have to work out your time management and what is the most important thing to you. And I think with some of those social media things, it's a bit about consistency or regularity, and you develop your own pattern for when you
Mhm.
want to do that and how you want to do it. And all of those platforms constantly change. which is another
Yeah.
thing that sucks energy out of you because you think you've got something nailed and you can use that and it's working for you. And then they change the rules and you start again.
Right. Well, I
So,
think people are fickle too. And so things
mm,
stop working after a while, and that you have to
yeah.
constantly refresh your strategy.
And to some extent, that's a different skill to writing. So if you're thinking of me, and well, we probably should go on to publishers in a minute, but um, I'm essentially writing for a small publisher, and they do some promotional work, but I'm also doing promotional work. But balancing that and the energy that takes, and it's a different mindset to promote, to market, to sell, to be a sort of salesperson, and that's not a strong element of my DNA. And
I've found you're not alone in that. But what I just heard, and this is what I think, one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is that, your transition was perfect because you brought up you actually have a publisher. And
I
at this
do, I do.
time, if someone just were to listen to what you were saying, Jennifer, they'd be going, "Oh, so she's an indie author." No, she has a publisher. Well, she is part indie. I think you consider yourself a hybrid. So tell me more about that.
No, I'm not actually a hybrid, so I've got those there. So publishers are changing, constantly changing. There are mergers between the companies. It's very competitive, and there are probably fewer traditional publishers than there have been in the past. AI is putting pressure on authors and publishers. So you need to have a think about what it is you're looking for in a publisher. So, with traditional publishers, that sounds like heaven. That was what I was hoping for, and I was submitting my books to traditional publishers initially, and but I was doing well in competitions. I was scoring in competitions, and I thought, right, that's good enough. It was a test I was giving myself. If I did well in a competition, then maybe that was good enough to submit. So I was submitting, and I'd get a knockback. I was submitting to 3 or 4 who I thought were the best match for me, and getting knockbacks. And so I put that manuscript in a drawer and started again on a new manuscript. And then one day I was speaking to someone from Romance Writers of Australia, and she said, "Oh, no, I wrote to every English language publisher in the world. I sent out about 30 queries with all of them to see if anyone was interested." And she got picked up by someone, which turned out not to be the best fit. But then she was subsequently picked up by Harlequin. And so she's done quite well. But it was, and I thought, heavens, that never crossed my mind, get out there and go. So that was, in fact, when I resubmitted, I pulled out something that had been reasonably successful, looked at it again, resubmitted it to a competition, and there was a publisher who was the judge, and she said she was interested in seeing the full manuscript, and I went from there. But so we've got those big traditional publishers. Then we've got hybrid. There was another thing I wanted to comment on about the big publishers. There's someone I know here in Sydney who's been picked up by Simon and Schuster, which is a bigger publisher. She pitched a book to them, and they signed her for 3 books. And they took the first one, they took the second one, and when she submitted her third one, they said they didn't think it was right for her at the moment. And so they wanted something different. And then she checked her contract, and in her contract, it said the name of the first book, and the other 2 were unnamed, and that was in the contract, so that they had the right to refuse whichever,
Wow.
because there was no title listed. It was unnamed,
Huh.
so that they could. Now she searched her bottom drawer, found
Sure.
something that they were interested in, and has put something out. But there's no guarantee with contracts these days with bigger publishers that it's forever, or
Yeah.
that it's even more than 1 or 2 books. So you do need to pay attention to those things, which is where membership of organisations, tuning into the people who talk about the industry, that industry knowledge helps you enormously. Now, hybrid would be exactly that woman. So there are a number of Australian authors I know who have they're multi-published with, say, Mills and Boon, or with Harlequin, or some of those, and then they submit a manuscript that the author is passionate about, but the publisher says that doesn't fit our brand or where we're going. Um, we want something different. And so you have a choice then to set it aside, seek a different publisher for those books and use a pen name, or in fact, self publish. And that's what some authors have done. That's how they became hybrid. Or they started
Mm.
as an independent publisher, and then they were doing so well that a traditional publisher approached them and said, "Would you like to join our stable?" But that's because they proved themselves in the first place. Now, a small publisher, which is what I've got, she has, I think, about 70 to 80 authors. And
Oh.
she's based in the United States, but she's been going for about 12 years or more. So she's sort of stood the test of time. But she doesn't have the reach or the other things that bigger publishers have. So when you attend conferences sometimes, or you're in conversations, you're treated as if you're an indie publisher because it's so small, the publishing company. And I also discovered, because now I check the publishing company on lots of books, and I discovered that an historical romance writer, Mimi Matthews, she has her own company. They only publish Mimi Matthews, but it's got a legit sort of company name of a publisher. So there are all of these variations that are around. There are vanity publishers, and vanity publishers are often ones that say, "Oh, yeah, that's absolutely fabulous, but can you give me this much money for the editing? Can you give me this much money for the artwork? Yes, look, we need to do this or this or this." And most of the people I've known in that area have not done well. Now, my small publisher, she pays for the editors, 3 rounds of editing. She pays for the covers, those sorts of things. Um, but for all of those publishing arms, whether it's the biggest ones like Simon and Schuster or anything else, you must have a social media presence and actively engage readers. And
So they're not going to pick you up unless you have been established already?
I am not fond of social media, so I was not on social media until I got picked up by this publisher. And she had
Mm.
as a no, prerequisite before submission to her that you have a social media presence. But she took me on and said, "Get it now." And so I then sort of started. But it goes back to our conversation at the beginning. That's why you start on that path of getting to know other authors, starting to build your following. So, because that'll be among the first questions you get asked. What sort of audience do you have? How many people are you reaching already? So we can piggyback on that, and we can see you'll pull your weight probably in this game. Um, another, because I was told just in the last month of about a romantasy author who got rejected by a big publisher, and she had 15,000 Insta followers. She just built it up. Yes, she just built it up through people she knew and getting it out there and getting ARC readers and things like that. And the publisher came back and took her on. But I think Amazon might have cornered the market to a large extent on indie publishing, on people who, yeah, load up their own books. But even for that, there are a whole lot of programs like Draft to Digital. So some of those
Yeah.
sorts of people who have those skills come along to the conferences as well, so that you can set up usually meetings with those individuals to learn things, do a pitch to them. They give sessions to talk about what's actually working at the moment or the shifts they're seeing in the industry, those sorts of things. So yeah, connecting with other authors, and doing what you love. I had a thought about, what does publishing involve? Editing covers, and we had a chat the other day about the difference between a realistic cover or a cover using vectors, which are kind of drawn figures. And my books all have vectors because I hoped that people would use their own imagination to um, put in who they looked like and imagined more about them. That's not the same as the cartoon or anime type of picture, which some people absolutely hate. But then some people buy books purely on the cover, some on the blurb. Some of the big publishers are starting to leave the blurb off. My publisher
Yeah.
organizes the editor, organizes the artwork, organizes the upload. And so we distribute wide, which means we go to all of the publishers, whereas a lot of truly indie authors just do Amazon, perhaps, rather than go wide. More of them are going wide now. But then you get down to marketing. And someone said, again, this was listening to some New Zealand writers, ask what they're going to do for you in marketing, because that'll answer your question about how much you have to do. What is it they're offering? Sometimes it's subscriber lists only, sometimes it's other sorts of things. But then does that also translate to sales? So there's an
Mm,
enormous amount of pressure on you to provide copies to advanced readers so that they might give you reviews. There are professional organizations that provide that service, as well as you can advertise through your own social media on your website that you want to build your own collective of people who read your
yeah.
books. But that's all your books getting out there. There's a constant push to discount. There are numbers of websites that'll promote your book if you've made it free or if you've made it US 99 cents. And they can be valuable because if you've got a series, you might have a new one coming out and you would put a discount on your first book as a sort of a lost leader to try and pull people
Mhm.
in. But a lot of people I've noticed can get your book for free. And so
Yeah.
they do. They do. And
Yeah.
so I could have, hundreds more people reading my book than actually pay for my book because of where it goes and pirating. Lots and lots of authors. Periodically, they'll send around a note and sort of say, check this site and see if your books are there.
Was there anything else around the book covers?
A couple of things I've learned. So with mine, I have been told in the past that with the bigger publishers, they have complete control over what the cover looks like. And then, so it's not automatic that you get any say in what your cover looks like. I get to put in some comments, but I only get 3 bites of the cherry to say,
How about that?
no, I don't like stick figures. I want normal shaped human beings, please. Or,
Yeah.
or, or no, she doesn't look like that at all. Or the clothes are all wrong, or things like that. I had a wonderful one where the most glorious clothes she was dressed in. It's actually my latest book. And I had said that she was eclectic in her taste and liked sustainable fabrics and secondhand kind of garments and things like that. And the first drawing I got from the artist, she was in this incredible top and then this glorious skirt that was sort of spread out all around her sitting on the couch. And it was completely wrong. And I had to say it's gorgeous, but it's completely wrong. It's more Indian sari than
Okay.
sarong. Had several artists that I've been asked to work with since I started with Inkspell Publishing, and they'll send you a form and they'll ask you about what the main characters look like. They'll ask you if there's any kind of motif uh, in the story that needs to be brought out. And I had someone who, in one of my books, was working on, he could restore antique furniture. And
Mm.
so ultimately, I got a gorgeous piece of furniture
Hmm.
included in the cover. I thought that was a sort of masterpiece that she found it. But anyway, so I'm not artistically bent particularly. So I'm not a visualizer. I am more a
Mm.
words-based person,
Mhm.
whereas someone who had a strong visual sense would probably be able to give an artist more guidance than I'm able to give them.
Okay.
And we've sort of learned with each other over a period of time. This last person who's done the last 5 books, which is the series, she's done them all. But a thing I noticed in the paperbacks, she has some dark colors in her backgrounds, and so the spines. are all quite dark, which means that on a shelf, they're not so easy to read.
We had talked about like people in their displays.
Mm.
And that's something to be mindful of, like, you're if you especially if you have a series, the colors,
Yes,
are they
yes.
pretty?
Yeah. Oh, and do they meld? But the other thing, to be aware of, I think, is, and maybe social media has made it so, and they talk about people's attention spans, being shorter than they used to be, is that people, change rapidly. So, historical romance it was the thing a couple of years ago. Then dark romance was on the rise. They've still got readerships, but romantasy seems to be taking over at the moment, and a lot of ghost stories. So I tend to write stories that come to me, rather than following what's in. But there are very serious authors and very good authors who have sat down, studied the market, worked out what's resonating in the market, and then written something to target that market. For example, the tropes are being used as the keywords. So
Mm,
opposites attract, enemies to lovers, redemption, tragic past, accidental baby, love redeems them. Love for the right person
exactly.
can change you. Yes. Best friend's brother or sibling, those sorts of things. They're being used actually as hashtags to reach particular areas. And cinnamon roll hero, different sorts of heroes. Alpha is the very uncommunicative, um, arrogant male that doesn't feature in my books. Certainly not as a lead,
Yeah.
because as you noted in my intro, I'm interested in respect and equality between partners, passion. But you can have passion with equality and respect. Yeah, so those sorts of things are used as keywords. Obviously, the genre, contemporary romance, indie romance, Australian romance, where you come from, cowboys, cowboy romance, that's huge, absolutely huge. So medical romance, these sorts of things all work as kind of keywords that you can attach to your things that readers might be automatically looking for, because readers have preferences.
Well, these are my key takeaways from my conversation with Jennifer. I learned that traditional publishing isn't always the ultimate goal. It has its perks, but it also has its limitations. Sometimes staying indie can actually give you more freedom and control. Associations, conventions, and contests are powerful ways to connect and even get in front of publishers if that's where you want to head. Those spaces also help you build community and learn from other writers. I realize success in publishing doesn't happen overnight. It often takes years before it's financially rewarding. The key message is to stay the course, keep showing up, and keep writing.
Thank you so much. Where can they find you? You have a website, right?
If you go to the website, the subscriber link is there, but at the end of every blog, I put how to contact me through Facebook, through Instagram, on BookBub, I'm on Goodreads, and they're places where people can go to get reviews of different books to see if they're interested as well. So yes, I'm on all of those, but thank you for the invitation. I hope it's been helpful.
Thank you for watching. I'll be back next week with more author insights and marketing strategies. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Again, thank you, and we'll see you next time.